Today I messed up by lying to my wife for 13 years. Today I messed up by lying to my wife for 13 years. My wife hates orange and lime flavored candies. I love them. Well, love the orange, like the lime. So, she passes on the orange Starburst to me. She passes the orange and green Skittles to me. She passes the orange and green gummy bears to me. This has been happening for 13 years. What she doesn't know is that the green Haribo gummy bears are actually strawberry. Shortly after we married, for one reason or another, I looked at the back of the Haribo gummy bears package and discovered this. So I haven't said anything for 13 years. Every time we get gummy bears, she gives me the orange and green, strawberry. I've never said a word. I've enjoyed eating my little lies. Until last night. We had some gummy bears and she opened them and she started to hand me the orange and green ones. But after a few minutes, I saw her looking at the back of the bag. Then I saw her eyes get real big. She turned to me and asked if I've known that the green bears were strawberry. She always thought they were lime. I was honest and nodded my head yes. The look of betrayal was unreal. She asked how long I've known, and I was honest. I told her as long as we've been married. She quit giving me the gummy bears she didn't like. She was even eating the orange ones out of spite. I don't think I'll get any more gummy bear discards after this. Time to buy my own. Edit. We don't eat these every day. A few times a year at most. I don't just get the rejects. It's a shared bag. Whenever she grabs a few, she would pick out the orange and green and hand to me. Just like I would give the pineapple to her. Blah. Today I messed up by coming into a coconut. Edit. I got an Ask Me Anything thread now. Help me. This today I messed up didn't happen today, but quite a few years back. For obvious reasons, I'm using a throwaway account as my family knows my main Reddit username. Anyway, around 8 years back I lived in northern Mozambique, a coastal southern African country with quite a warm climate. My mother at the time was going through a health nut phase and only buying foods she deemed healthy enough. One of these was coconuts. She would buy several coconuts a week to use in food from the local market. Anyway, being a horny teenager, I fapped in regular intervals. Unfortunately, there was some severely stressful examinations coming up for me, and as such my fapping reached a higher peak than usual and I was feeling pretty sexually frustrated. One day I hear that my mother is going to be out for pretty much the entire afternoon. Horny me decides that it would be a fantastic idea to fudge a coconut. Honestly, to this day, I can't fathom why I thought that would be a good idea, but my train of thought back then was clearly somewhat clogged. I end up grabbing the coconut drill, and through 20-ish minutes of concerted effort end up creating a hole large enough for me to stick my porker into. I decide it requires some lube and grab the nearest slippery thing, some butter, before shoving it into the coconut, followed shortly by my meat. I fudge the coconut, and it actually feels pretty damn good, so I blow my load, shove the coconut under my bed, and continue about my day. For the next week, the coconut is my savior. Whenever I want to get off, I simply take it out and fudge it in its delightfully tight hole, made better each time by accumulating volumes of my semen and butter acting as a lubricant. It's heaven. Now, before I continue, I'd best mention that at the time our area was experiencing quite humid, muggy weather, which exacerbated an already existing fly problem. Disgustingly fat, bloated flies were commonly found around our house, and the exterminators couldn't really do anything because it was a localized area problem that would go away in the winter. About a week and a bit after the initial coconut fudge, I had been using it pretty much every day since then. I begin to notice a few more flies than usual, as well as an odd, unpleasant smell about my room. Must be the coconut, right? So I decide that I'll fudge it once more before I throw it out and get a new one. Worst mistake I have ever made. You see, the reason for the increased number of flies was that the coconut was evidently, in hindsight, a nearly perfect place to lay eggs. As I penetrate the coconut one last time, I begin to feel a strange wriggling sensation. Puzzled, I pull my jerk out to discover that it is covered in rotted and moldy butter and semen and teeming with tiny freaking maggots. They were wriggling all over my jerk head, and some were even trying to force their way up into my urethra. I screamed and threw the coconut against the wall, which made the situation worse by spilling the contents. Hours of vigorous jerk scrubbing, vomiting, and cleaning the remnants were spent reflecting on what the fudge I was doing with my life. Never again. Never again. Edit. Jesus, this exploded. I'm glad my maggoty experience made some people laugh, because I sure cry every time I think back to it. Edit 2. Rest in peace inbox. Edit 3. Thanks for the gold. It eases my shame a little. I'm thinking of doing an Ask Me Anything for you more curious individuals. Maybe if the post hits 10K. It's quite uncomfortable to discuss though as the visceral memories come back. Edit 4. My shame has never been this large. 47.1K upvotes. My story of coconut freaking is now permanently etched into Reddit's history. Lord save me. Today I messed up by wearing a shawl, which ruined my relationship with my girlfriend. Minor background. I am a pretty affectionate and at times effeminate dude. I'm 6 feet 2 inches and have a pretty tough guy background in that I was in special forces a while ago, and my roommates all served as well, but I also have thin wrists and sit on my friends' laps and blow kisses to them and crap. I'm not gay, I just am me. So while I was in a shop with a roommate a few weeks ago, he saw these really cool shawls that we both couldn't get out of our heads. He returned last weekend to buy them and now we have these shawls. Mine makes me look like a Star Wars character, and his looks like the outlaw Josie Wales. These are seriously awesome shawls. The first night we wore them, everybody at the dive bar we went to dudes, thought they were awesome as well. Then this girl and her friend arrive on invite from Shawlbro, and they are seriously turned off by our sweet shawls. Like, acting pretty weird about them and making comments. Whatever. So I get a call from my girlfriend. She's tired and wants to hang out at mine. And so I bid these mean girls and Shawlbro adieu and head home. I'm still wearing the shawl when my girlfriend arrives, and she's also really taken aback. She won't even kiss me until I take it off. We do the deed and go to sleep, and the next morning she starts asking me if I'm gay. And she's really serious and aggressive about it. I tell her I'm not, that if I was I'd definitely know if by now, and she counters with her major evidence of the fact that I own a shawl. Anyway, she gets weird and leaves, and then sends me a text later about how she's sorry and that she needs to think about what kind of man she wants, and then doesn't contact me for days. So yesterday I invite her out. She's stumbling over her words and talking about how she likes tough guys and how she grew up in the South and needs to get used to the big city, but that she doesn't know this or that, and eventually I just tell her very politely to get fucked because I'm pretty insulted by this point. On the way back, now that I'm not directly in front of her, I get this long apologetic text from her, but the crux of it is that yeah, she's just not that into me anymore because I wore a shawl. Later on, I tell Shawlbro about this, and he also had a blowout with the girl he was seeing over his shawl that very same night we went out. We are both going to keep wearing the shawls though. They're warm. Edit. She's a nice girl. She's just not picking up what I'm putting down. It's a silly thing to be mad about. And by popular demand. Edit 2. Today I messed up by having the username Soundman1488 for 15 plus years of being on the internet and been unknowingly identifying myself as a Nazi. I found out here on Reddit that my username that I've used 15 plus years all over the internet was connected to Nazis because of the 1488. They banned me on r/AskReddit for it. I posted about it on here and changed my name to r/Nazi stole my birthday. r/AskReddit unbanned me. This post blew up and got really popular. It got me a 3-day suspension from Reddit for circumventing my ban on r/AskReddit. This morning I found out that somehow this post got changed to contain a ton of really inappropriate racial and homophobic slurs along with threats of violence. This was not me. I have no idea how that happened. Some of you won't believe this and I understand that. I would be skeptical myself if I were you. For what it's worth, I would never say things that, much less think them. My intention was to simply share my story, and it blew up way more than I thought it would. Some misguided soul thought it would be good to change the post and mess the whole thing up. I take responsibility for what happens on my account, but these statements were not made by me. Obviously, they have upset a lot of people, and I wish I could meet each of you face to face to apologize. This was not a stunt to try and get karma or awards. Again, some won't believe that, and that's okay. If you care, you can look at my original post on r/ban to see where I was trying to understand why my name was offensive. You can also look at my post and comment history on this account and my new one to see that this was very clearly not me. I'm sorry everyone. I think I'm done with Reddit entirely. Today I messed up by swiping on my girlfriend's phone, not safe for work. So this happened a few days ago, and I'm still not sure I'm 100% ready to tell the story, but here goes. I've been with my girlfriend for about a year, and I already know she is the love of my life. She's perfect for me. We're perfect for each other. We're getting ready to move in with each other, and I want nothing more than to start a family with her and spend the rest of my life with her. We went on a short vacation last week, and when we returned, she gave me her phone to look at some photos from the trip. She went to the bathroom while I had her phone, and as I was scrolling through the pictures, it kind of jumped to a period that was about a year and a half ago. If you have an iPhone, you know what I'm talking about. You scroll a little bit too fast, and all of a sudden you're back at the start of the photo album. It's annoying as hell, but some photos caught my eye. Some photos that I really shouldn't be seeing of her and a previous boyfriend. There she is, the love of my life, trying to get her mouth around the biggest jerk I've ever seen in my life. I've watched porn a lot. I've never seen a jerk like this. I'm talking bigger than two Coke cans stacked on top of each other, longer and thicker. As far as I could tell, she was unable to get her teeth around it. I could see another thumbnail of her comparing the size of his jerk to her forearm with a look of wonder and glee on her face. I closed the pictures and I've acted like nothing has happened, but I cannot get these images out of my mind. I've never been self-conscious about my jerk size. In fact, if you believe the stats, I'm significantly above average, but this has destroyed my self-esteem. We haven't had sex since. I can't concentrate on my work. I just wish I had never seen those damn pictures. Update. There's a lot of people assuming that this was a one-night stand. It wasn't. She was with this guy for 3 years. Today I messed up by stuffing my face with edibles before dinner with my wife's parents. Recently, I traveled to Denver, Colorado with my wife and my wife's parents. As a resident of a non-legalized state, and as someone who is too much of a wimp to regularly buy illegal drugs, the thing I was looking forward to most was the chance to buy fancy legal weed. What could possibly go wrong? So the first thing I do upon arriving, and after successfully ditching the in-laws, is drag my wife to a nearby dispensary for a shopping spree. And oh my God, it was just like in my dreams. Tons of different options in neat little sample jars, and a team of helpful stoners walking me through the various strains. Are you looking for a mellow body high? Or do you want something that gives you a bit more pep and energy? Or are you just hoping for something light to take the stress off? Yes, yes, and yes. I reply eagerly, like a fat kid in a candy store, and request an 1/8 ounce of about 7 different options. In hindsight, if I learned anything from this experience, it is that my math and science teachers never taught me basic information, like, what is an ounce? Or, how much weed can a person consume in a single weekend? Sure, I can tell you when 2 speeding trains leaving separate stations will collide or recite Avogadro's number, but it turns out that none of that information is particularly relevant to getting high in a responsible and efficient manner. And it was at this dispensary that I also learned that you can't actually smoke in public places, including the hotel that my wife and I were staying at. As a result, before leaving, I begged my wife to buy some edibles that I could munch on until we found a place to properly get lit. After expressing shock as to the absurd volume of drugs that we were buying, unlike me, she is the product of private school and understands the imperial measurement system. She relents, and we walk out of the store with what felt like a dump truck of weed plus a small package of seemingly innocuous ginger snap cookies. When we finally get back to the hotel room, I tear those bad boys open, only to find about a dozen tiny cookies roughly the size of a quarter. What the fudge, Denver? Seeing the skepticism and hunger in my eyes, my wife warns me that I should go easy and look at the back of the package first before trying one. Dose size, 1/2 cookie, I read silently as I start taking microbites from the edges, like a giant chinchilla gnawing on a sunflower seed. But what kind of a savage only eats half a cookie? So a second later, I covertly pop the remainder into my mouth. And then I quickly stuff another 2 cookies in my mouth for good measure the moment my wife turns her back. We may not have legal weed back home, but I routinely devour an entire package of Milanos in one sitting without breaking a sweat. Your move, tiny ginger snaps. About 30 minutes later, we are in the back seat of her parents' rental car on the way to dinner. And that's when things start to go tits up. My stomach growls, loudly and angrily. My wife looks at me with inquisitive eyes that seem to say, "Diarrhea?" But I merely clutch my tummy and mumble something about altitude sickness. "You didn't eat a whole cookie, did you?" she asks, 10% in genuine concern and 90% in seething irritation. "Of course not," I respond, avoiding eye contact for the remainder of the car ride. A few minutes later, we are climbing out of her parents' rental car and heading into some trendy farm-to-table restaurant. I don't remember how I made it to my seat, and I don't remember even looking at the menu, but I do remember the concerned look on the waiter's face as he asked me if I was doing all right. "Keep it together, man," I say to myself, but my wife's sudden groan suggests that I may have also said that to the waiter. Things are going downhill fast. The waiter nods sympathetically, takes our orders, and then heads to the next table. The moment he walks away, my wife is staring daggers at me. I start to worry that the jig is up. "You are sweating from your entire face," she says with both pity and disgust. Not quite knowing what to do, I reach for my napkin and proceed to blot my cheeks, nose, neck, chin, and forehead. At this point, my wife's mom looks over at me with some concern. "Are you all right?" she asks kindly. "Yeah, the food's just a bit spicy," I reply, far too quick to realize that we had literally just ordered and that there is nothing on the table except for a basket of dinner rolls. My wife kicks me under the table to grab my attention. "Bathroom. Now," she hisses. "Get it together." I reluctantly get up from the table and head for the toilet. After splashing several handfuls of water on my face, I approach a urinal and start to pee. Now, one of the more disconcerting effects of those tiny ginger snap monsters is the feeling that time has become untethered from reality. As I am peeing, I start to get the very unsettling feeling that I have been taking a piss for the better part of an hour and that my wife must be pacing around the restaurant worried about me. But deep down I know that is absurd. I've been peeing all my life, sometimes multiple times a day. I've probably taken more than 50,000 leaks, and it usually only takes about a minute at most. So given that my typical pee is no more than 60 seconds, and given that it feels like I am about halfway done, that means that I've probably only been standing here about 30 seconds, right? But the guy at the urinal next to me doesn't respond, and instead starts shuffling away from me midstream, like a startled penguin. I try, albeit unsuccessfully, to break eye contact. After finally finishing, I again splash some water on my face and return to my seat, making sure to apologize to the table for being gone such a long time, just in case my math was off. Next, I try briefly to engage in small talk with my wife's father, but I am far too high to understand what either of us are saying, not wanting to start laughing uncontrollably at the wrong moment. Or, really, at any moment. I figure the safest idea is to nod my head periodically and drink a ton of water. Nothing cures mental fatigue like water, right? To my wife's horror, I stand up, grab my water glass, and thrust it out to the waiter, who unfortunately is on the opposite side of the restaurant. But he turns out to be really cool and, after making his way over to our table, tells me that he'll do his best to keep me stocked with ice water for the rest of the meal. He also helpfully suggests that if the dinner rolls aren't too spicy for me, I should probably eat one or two so that I'm not sitting there on an empty stomach. Smart man. However, after going through all of the bread on the table and 3 glasses of water, I start to get worried that I need actual food to offset the growing paranoia from those tiny ginger snap devils. Do you think I should flag down the waiter again and ask what's taking so long? I suggest helpfully to my wife. What? We literally just ordered 3 freaking minutes ago. And at that exchange, my wife loses her cool. "How many cookies did you eat?" she demands. "Whoa, easy there, Torquemada," I respond, somewhat horrified at her outburst. "I had a few cookies, but keep it down. I don't want your parents to know how messed up I am right now." "Really? They are sitting 2 feet away from you. They know." I look up and for the first time notice both of my in-laws just staring at me for what literally felt like an eternity. Edit. Wow. Thanks everyone for all the love and for even some of the hate. I think I have officially peaked in life. As for part 2 of the story, there's a reason, or technically 3 delicious reasons, why it was cut short. At that point, my wife's singular focus was on getting me out of the restaurant before I either puked all over the table or pissed myself, or an unsightly combination of both. So after a few spastic, two-handed waves goodbye to my in-laws, she rushed me to the door like a Secret Service agent evacuating the president. My night after that was a whirlwind of barfing and groveling, mixed with a few vain attempts at getting handsy back in the hotel room. But being the absolute awesome sweetie that she is, my wife stuck with me through the whole nightmare, whispering over and over in my ear, "Please don't die. We have a mortgage."